Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you are well. I am just feeling a little bit chilly this morning though. This weather, oh my goodness. We have a couple of days of sunshine and it's gorgeous and it makes me feel like metaphorically a spring lamb proinging in the fields, followed by more rain, damp chilliness. Never mind, one could say it's perfect reading weather. So on to the books. 3 books for you again today. Let's start with Amy Leach's Things That Are. The subtitle, Encounters with Plants, Stars and Animals. I was attracted to this book by the cover. Gorgeous, isn't it? Oh, where to start with this book? So this is a book, it's natural history and it covers plants, animals and stars. Let me read what The Guardian said on the back just by way of introduction because it's succinct. 26 pieces here are short, pithy and packed with information delivered in poetic but precise language. It is rich fare. Don't read too much in one sitting. These are the gold flakes you scatter on the rice dish of your everyday reading. I could not agree more. So it's 26 short-ish essays. Oh my goodness. Now it took me, I would say, about 10 pages to, I'm now getting warm, 10 pages to get into her writing because, well, her... Sorry, let me get this cardigan off. Yeah, I was having to read and reread each sentence 2 or 3 times to begin with. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is a hard chew. I'm not really getting on with this. But then I started to get into her writing and click with it and then flew through the rest of it. The language is really playful. She sort of... So it's all based on fact. It's all factual, but it's the delivery and it's how she sort of looks at things sideways, through, from behind, upside down, stretching and playing with the language. She uses, it's sort of poetic, onomatopoeic. There's rhythm, there's rhyme, there's alliteration. It's incredibly playful. It's really, really quirky, characterful. I clicked after a number of pages. Firstly, I clicked with her writing style. It's like, okay, and now I can get on and enjoy it. And then after a little while, I thought, I know what this reminds me of suddenly. It's in that sort of rich vein of almost nonsense writing. So if we think about someone like Lewis Carroll and the Jabberwocky, 'twas brillig and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wave, all mimsy were the borogoves and the mome raths outgrabe. It's nonsense, but somehow we understand it. And that's what Amy's writing is like. It's not quite nonsense. It's not nonsense at all. It's just really playful and quirky. I've marked a couple of pages. So, oh, and also, like Lewis Carroll, there are a couple of bits like this where the typeset is played with as well. Flap, 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 drop, flap, 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 drop, flap, 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 drop. She's describing the flight of a bird. So it's both the word description, but also a visual description of it. This one that I marked. So for example, if we were reading just our regular straight kind of natural history book, we might read that there's no sound on the moon. That's it. And we might have an explanation about vacuums and what have you. But this is her, I just, couple of lines. Nothing makes a sound on the moon and nothing ever could. not a harpsichordist, not a shattering tureen of mangle wurzel stew, not the pebble-sized meteoroids that wang down at 78,000 miles an hour and heat the ground so hot it glows like a little piece of star. So you get the sense from that it's incredibly rich, colourful writing. And that's why I think on the back where the Guardian says don't read too much in one sitting, it is really rich. This is like chocolate pudding with chocolate sauce on it in a book. Read a bit, wallow in it, relish all that play with the words and imagery and yeah, close your eyes, enjoy it, and then put it down and just allow yourself some time to digest. Gorgeous. And that's kind of how I sort of raced through it. It wasn't so much that I read one essay per day. Like I said, there's 26 essays in here. It wasn't quite one a day, but I would read one and then put the book down, go and do something else that I didn't have to think about, go and do something with my hands like cooking or whatever, and I could just let that last essay go around in my head like we might savour the flavour of something on our palate for minutes, even hours after we've eaten. Really enjoyed it. It's going to go into my shop. I actually bought it for the shop and I thought, what's this? Let's have a read first. It's an absolute delight. Fun, quirky, a bit bonkers, but really interesting too. There were so many times when I thought, I didn't realise that. Or, no, not so much things I didn't realise, but things I hadn't thought of. So right at the beginning, we start with salmon spawning. And there were a few moments I thought, do you know what, I'd never thought about that. That's really interesting. So I learned new things in just the most delightful, characterful, fun way. Loved it. When was it published? It was first published in the UK in 2013. Some of you may have already read it. Fun. Thank you, Amy Leach. Now, and now for something completely different, not quite. I've ended up today. This is 3 books which all have nature as their theme. As soon as I saw this, I thought, yes. Again, I bought it for the shop and then read it myself. So this is Strands, A Year of Discoveries on the Beach by Jean Sprackland. I've got to show you the cover. I've got to open it right out, see if we can get a good look at it. Now, my fellow Lancastrians, my fellow Northwesterners will probably, let me show you a bit closer, instantly recognise this bit of beach. This is Ainsdale Sands. So for those not familiar with the area and perhaps even outside of the UK, if you picture the UK, go to the northwest, the Lancashire coast. If you imagine sort of between Liverpool and Blackpool, we're talking that bit of coast. This is my childhood playground. So specifically, the bit of beach she walks and combs almost every day is between Formby and Southport Pier. So it's her year of... So she's been there for 20 years and she's been up and down this beach, enjoying just, walking, beachcombing, what have you, for 20 odd years. And this book is written in the year before she leaves the area to move to London. So it's a calendar year. We start in January and we go through, because that does change things, weather, what have you. But just a bit of a note on this bit of coastline. It's actually quite a dangerous bit of coastline because it's incredibly shallow. I've mentioned this a couple of times before, I think, where you might go for the day to one part of one of these beaches, and literally the sea when the tide is out, the sea can be 2 miles out, so gently does it shelve. So you set up on the beach, and if you want to swim, you've got to walk 2 miles to get to the sea. But therein is how dangerous it can be, because though it's very shallow shelving and it looks flat, there are little, ever so slight sandbanks, and you might be 2 miles out looking at these sandbanks, gorgeous. The tide's coming in, and what you haven't realised is it rushes in. I wrote this down, actually, I'm sure. Did I write it down about how quickly it comes in? 3 meters per second. That's a quick change for the tide, isn't it? And so what can easily happen, and what does happen, is people get cut off. You've got your back to the land, you're looking out to sea, la la la, and unbeknownst to you, either side, the tide is racing in and coming in behind you and cutting you off. So it's an interesting landscape. It does feel wild, it feels dangerous, but it's very, very, very flat. So it's not like when we think of, say, our West Country coast, which is all interesting little coves and craggy cliffs with waves smashing. This is miles and miles and miles of long sandy beaches, beautiful fine sand, backed by dunes, and that's the part of the beach that I always used to love, being in the sand dunes. And of course down towards Formby, it was artificially planted, a conifer forest, and that's where one of the last pockets of red squirrels live in the UK. Magical places. So this, like I said, this is a year of being on the beach and, you know, seeing what's exposed. What does the tide throw up? What gets exposed when the tide goes out? There's a couple of shipwrecks which sometimes become exposed, and other times they disappear for months, sometimes even years on end. Prehistoric sites that appear and then disappear. There's a section of what would once have been mud with prehistoric human footprints in, and it happens to be one day when she's there that it appears for the first time in decades, and it's the winter, but even so she takes her boot and sock off because she wants to put her bare foot in the footstep of one of our, I think, is it Mesolithic? I think this goes back to the Mesolithic period, 7,000 years. She can put her foot in the footprint of one of our ancestors. Because of what gets thrown up, it goes all over the place in both history, social history, natural history. It's incredibly well researched. You can tell there's been a lot of research done. So, for instance, a teacup, a Cunard line teacup she finds one day. There's a photo of it as well. Hang on, let me just find the teacup photo. And that sets her off on another research mission. So she ends up teacup just washed up. So she ends up in Liverpool at the Maritime Records Office. So there's a lot of maritime history in here. I mean, it's huge in scope in a way, because what gets washed up on the beach is a combination of its man-made stuff, the teacup, which takes us down the rabbit hole of the great big ocean-going liners, their history in the 20s and 30s. And then another day it might be seaweed that's washed up. There's very little seaweed naturally occurring in this area because there's nothing for the seaweed to cling on to. There's no rocks. No rocks on this beach. Beautiful barefoot, but nothing for seaweed to cling on to. But sometimes some seaweed is thrown up. So then we go down a rabbit hole of, you know, natural history and edibles, seaside edibles, all sorts of different seaweeds. She talks about lava bread, samphire, which is sort of like poor man's seaside asparagus, if you like. Oh gosh, there's so much to it. And of course, creatures. So we get told about jellyfish and sea urchins and all sorts of different, what do you call them? I can't think of the word. In shell, shellfish. Thank you. Fish in shells. It's an absolute riot of information, history, fun, messages in bottles. I loved that. Really, really loved that. She finds one and then she finds another almost straight away, and it's kind of really random what's written. What's it mean? So again, she goes off to research it. So it's a wonderful combination of that sense of the wonder of being outdoors and never knowing what one is going to experience, the wonder of treasure, found treasure, and the whole time it's brimming with her insatiable curiosity. And I loved that because that suits me. That's kind of how I am as well. It's like, okay, I found something, but I want to know more. I always want to know more. So yeah, it's a gorgeous beachcombers, history buffs pick and mix, if you like. Such a blast and an easy read. I mean, it's not a long book. It's about 250 odd. Yeah, about 250 pages. I read it in 2 sittings. I couldn't put it down. Love it. She's got a really lovely, easy, breezy style. It's sort of, one could almost picture, and I kind of did actually, and partly because I know this place so well, although it's a long time since I've been there. But her writing style is almost like walking along that beach with a friend, and she's just excitedly telling you, oh, guess what I found yesterday? You'll never guess. And then I got home and I looked it up and it was such and such and such a thing. So it's walk along Ainsdale Sands with Jean Sprackland and let her tell you all about the amazing, fabulous stuff she's found on the beach. Be enthralled. Get kind of taken along with her enthusiasm and curiosity. Absolutely loved it. It's going to go in the shop. Right, excuse me, nose rub. And she also, there's a little bit about, I could go on and on, but Driftwood as well. And it was one of those things where I think one of the reasons I liked it so much is because I identified with it so much that this is how I am, this is who I am. Because even as I was reading it, there was the little bit section on Driftwood, and in my head I was thinking, I can't remember the difference between flotsam and jetsam. And I kind of knew it, and it was sort of vaguely there. But vaguely there is never good enough for me. I want to know. So, having finished one particular chapter, I'd written a note on my pad because it was really late at night. I'd written a note on the pad, flotsam/jetsam, check. So the next day when I turned the computer on for work, after I'd finished my work, I did a quick little looking up of flotsam and jetsam. And it's actually much more wrapped up in maritime law and all the legal stuff than I had ever realised or ever known. Anyway, yeah. So her wonderful book, full of curiosity, then sparked my own curiosity. I love it when books do that. Brilliant. Now, goodness me, I've got Virginia with me today. It's from my bookshop days. When you're having a mug of tea in the bookshop, you have to have a book mug in a bookshop, don't you? So, on to my last one for today. Oh, I loved it. Again, I bought it for the shop, but again, I thought I'm going to have a read myself first. So all of these were brand new books. I didn't pay brand new price. They were all brand new, mint condition. Now they're all gently used by one careful reader. I knew of this book, but I haven't ever seen it secondhand. So, do you remember when I was doing my furniture buy, and Oh, it's a long stretch back. I was out buying my furniture that day, the chairs, and as I was coming back up the street, I bumped into a girlfriend and she said, "Oh, they're putting new stock out. Go and have a look." And I went along and I found this copy of The Swimmer, The Wild Life of Roger Deacon. So it's a biography of the gentleman who wrote, oh, there's my little Katie shrew sitting on it. He's the gentleman that wrote Waterlog, one of my all-time favourite books. 1999. So he came to writing a bit later in life. I'm just digressing momentarily. So he came to writing it slightly later in life. And then unfortunately his life was cut short. I think he was 63 when he died. He had a brain tumour. He died at 63. So Robert McFarland, who some of you will know as a sort of nature writer and rural affairs writer, they'd become really good friends, and Robert McFarland was executor to Deacon's literary estate. I'm a little bit nervous about reading this because in my mind I love him and I don't want to find out that he's not as wonderful as I think he is, but I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, I'd got that. And then a couple of days later I went back into the shop to see if they put any more stock out, because I found that book at the same time as the Kate Rue Wildson, and I thought, oh, has someone had a clear out of books that are exactly my kind of thing? So I went back a couple of days later, I'm leading into this book, just in case there was anything more from that person's collection that I'd want to snaffle, and there was another Roger Deacon. So in his lifetime, he wrote Waterlog in 1999, and in 2006 he was dead. So it's like, hang on, that's not fair. He's just getting into his stride. So there's another book of his that some of you may know, Wildwood, A Journey Through Trees. Oh, hang on, let's just pop that like that. Too stretchy. And then the only other book, and it sort of completes the triptych, if you like, I mentioned Robert McFarland being his literary executor. He gathered together all of Roger's notebooks from the last 6 years of his life, so from 2000 to 2006, and took little bits out of all of his notebooks and compiled this book, which is, it's in diary form. We start in January. We start in January, we go through to December. As you might expect from anyone writing about nature, it makes sense to do it like that because then we get that passage of the seasons. So it's extracts from 6 years. So sometimes you get 2 entries for the same date, but of course it's different years. The book is Notes from Walnut Tree Farm. Walnut Tree Farm is his house in Suffolk. I'm going to get a bit emotional actually. It's really beautiful, so simple, and a lot of it is, I hardly made any notes. I was just so in it in the moment. What did I write? So a lot of it, of course, is about nature and the natural world, and he has daily walks. Occasionally there's a trip to Dorset in there. Some of the entries are, sort of a couple of pages long or 3 pages long. Some of the entries are just 1 line long. Let me see if I can give it, you see, there's an example. Some of them really short, and then others might be 2, 3, even 4 pages long. So a lot of it's reflections on, even things like one day, there's an ant crawling across his desk and he's thinking about the ant's life and how they work together en masse. So a lot of it is, it's countryside, but then there are things which are just his daily tasks, his daily chores of gathering wood, chopping wood, fixing the house. It's a medieval house he lives in, so it's always needing repairs. Lunch with a friend, just little glimpses into his daily life. Oh, and sort of memories as well. Occasionally there'll be a memory from his childhood that's sparked by, he'll see something and it sparks a memory and he delves into it a little bit. Or memories from his adulthood, but say 20, 30 years ago. Lots in there on his sort of thoughts on conservation and which direction we're going in with that, because he's I think he was one of the co-founders of Friends of the Earth. Don't quote me on that. He's something to do with something of that sort. And conservation became so much of his life in later years. Absolutely gorgeous. I've earmarked a couple, not earmarked, I've sticky marked a couple of little passages to sort of give you an idea. So it is quite eclectic. Look, the focus, yes, it's very much on the natural world, but little snippets of others. So bear with me. I loved this one. Books are like seeds. They come to life when you read them and grow spines and leaves. I need trees around me as I need books around me. So building bookshelves is something like planting trees. Yes. You know, as I was reading through this, I just thought, he sounds wishes and all that, but I wish I could have met him. Literally everything he's written in this book, I was thinking, I'd love to just sit and chat with you, or I'd love to work with you in the garden, the vegetable garden, out in the hedgerows, and just chat. My kind of guy. That's what I mean about being a bit nervous about reading the biography, because from this and from Waterlogged, I just love him so much. I don't want to be disappointed. Another little one, tiny. Where are we? March. The first bumblebees are out foraging. It's sunny and still after all the wind. Birds are singing in the hedges. It's just simple, isn't it? But it's those little observations which, write them down, because they are the most fleeting thoughts, aren't they? But when we can put these things on paper, we can maybe just stay in the moment a little bit longer. Love it. I need to start writing again. In London, because he has to come up to London quite a lot for work, publishers and all that. In London, in Museum Street is the street that runs north-south. It's just a little street, and it tips out at the northern end onto the sort of the big plaza outside the British Museum. Hence, it's called Museum Street. In London, in Museum Street, I find a little country spider on my rucksack. It comes crawling out and walks up the arm strap, then pauses and wonders where it is and where to go next. I keep finding it about my person, on my sleeve, on my jacket lapel. It stays with me somehow all the way home on the train to Suffolk and escapes onto my study desk, then out into the garden through the open window. It's just delightful, isn't it? A little tiny little observation. This one got to me and I thought, oh, he's so right. You know, for all of us that live alone, there will be some of us who don't enjoy it and some of us who love it. I love it. I'm very happy in my own company. I have a very active internal life. For the most part, I'm really happy. But every now and again, I think, I wish there was someone, to share, whatever. And this sums it up perfectly. And this is what I mean about it's really eclectic. It is, yes, lots of nature, but other stuff. I need someone to fold the sheet. He lives alone. Someone to take the other end of the sheet and walk towards me and fold once. Then step back, fold, and walk towards me again. We all need someone to fold the sheet, someone to hitch on the coat at the neck, someone to put the kettle on, someone to dry up while I wash. Sweet, charming, small, minutiae of life, but I suppose that is also in a nutshell I don't know how to word this. I mean, I can't read his mind, but certainly for me, and maybe that's why I'm attracted to this, it's about those really small things which can be so lovely, so joyful, so engrossing and captivating and distracting. There's no bells and whistles, there's no spending of a fortune for happiness. Contentment with those little things. It's lovely, truly, truly lovely book. Highly recommend it. I've got a feeling it might be in my top 5 by the end of the year. Loved it. So yeah, what a really lovely run of books that was. Starting with Amy Leach's, really quirky, slightly bonkers, fun, but it won't be for everyone. I would say if you do have a go, bear with it, because it might take you, like me, it took 10 pages or so to kind of go, okay, I know what this writing is. I know how to read this book. So yeah, it's not necessarily going to immediately grab folk, but stick with it because I think it's worth it. Strands, loved it, partly because I know the beach, but I loved it because it's so far-ranging in subject matter. It is an absolute smorgasbord of subjects, but always we come back to this beach and I could feel that sand. I could feel the sand. And like I said, it's like taking a walk with Jean on a beach and her nattering away about what she's found and how excited she is. And finishing with Walnut Tree Farm, next from Walnut Tree Farm. Beautiful. And this is where I'm going to get emotional. You know, reading his books, I'm so glad he kept notes, and that Robert Macfarlane was able to sort of compile this book for us. It just seems such a cruelty, doesn't it, that he was only 63, and it's like, I want more of his writing. I literally, right now, having finished this, I just think, I'll read anything. I'll read Roger Deakin's shopping lists. I want to read more, but there won't be any more. I don't know, unless there's something hiding. When was this published? I think 12 or 2013. Oh gosh, it's tiny print. Oh, 2008. So I think if there were any more notes that could be made into a book, I think we'd have had them by now. So yeah, that's it. Enjoy your Roger Deacon. There are only 3 to enjoy. Oh, beautiful. All right, lovelies, that's it for today. I was going to try and keep it shorter. I will see you all again really soon. Next book chat, I'm not sure what it will be, whether it will be archives again or my current reading. I've just started my next one, which is 25 years old. I'm really late to the party. It's a book that I'm sure a lot of you will know, will have read. It's certainly a book I handled a lot in my book selling days. It was always coming through the bookshop. And I always thought, yeah, that looks interesting, and never bought it. Go figure. So I have now. It's just over there on the sofa waiting for me to tuck into it again tonight. Can't wait. So until the next one, happy reading to you all. Happy following your curiosity and allowing yourself to be curious and allowing yourself to be whooshed by all the wonderful things that are out there. Yay! So until the next one, lovely people, cheerio.